It's this overlying oppression because of the system we live in that has had an impact on the people under it. It's like patriarchy and colonialism, essentially. Or white supremacy is really what I'm pretty sure that one comes out of. But would you agree with that? Would you disagree with that? Is that...
You know what? And again, that's the first time I've heard that corollary. I think that makes a lot of sense, and there very well could be that. When you say that, it's just making me think of like just hegemony, period, which would go along with patriarchy. And hegemony is this great rubric. Underneath it, you're going to have all these other subsets. And one of them very well could be post-traumatic slave syndrome, along with, as you said, patriarchy, and we could go into imperialism, colonialism, all the other things. So if they're interlocking systems that ultimately, that uphold hegemony sort of control, then I would think that effectively you would have that. So I think that there's a lot to explore to what you just said. And it would seem to make sense because it's another sort of thing that's broad, and yet it's specific to a kind of demographic. Like you say, with the patriarchy, and you look at women and what's happened historically, then there's another demographic that has its own cross to bear, if you will. And if you keep the various demographics divided and to some extent even wanting to challenge each other or to be at odds, then you scatter any kind of focus to be unified to maybe to topple or overthrow the hegemony, obviously. So I think that could be very valid. That's a really good, astute comment. So a lot of people, it seems like they were resistant to the idea of my identity, I guess, or just to what I've proposed to you.
Yeah, that seems to be how it is being perceived. I have found myself in Discord servers in the past for things like transracialism, but like you mentioned, there's like nobody in there. There's not a lot of people actively telling their stories. So I think that it's very new. Like, imagine being the first person to claim a or not saying you're the first, but imagine being one of the first to claim a transgender identity. People are going to be like, what are you talking about? This is ludicrous. This is not a thing that we acknowledge.
And speaking to like the hegemony and things like that, what I have seen in a lot of the transracial discourse and in other communities too, on Reddit and just in other places, most will spotlight, they'll say these are privileged white people or people that appear to be white that say they're transracial, and therefore they're saying that they're Asian or Korean or whatever it is, or it's like white people saying that they are of color. And it's like, well, that's just exercising yet again another element of white privilege to be able to do that and still yet to retain the white privilege. And whereas someone of color generally wouldn't be accorded and afforded that. And that's generally what it is. That's like what I've seen other people say in communities. And that infuriates people, especially with the history of the minstrel shows and things like that, or other examples of true cultural appropriation that has happened, which I get. And I think that true cultural appropriation needs to be dismantled. I disavow racism. I disavow the minstrel show and things like that, or people blackfishing or whatever they want to call it. I mean, that's its own separate issue. I'm talking about insistent, consistent, persistent reality here on this subject. And you're right, without the stories, then it's very easy to deride it, especially Rachel Dolezal, because when she erupted onto the scene back in 2015, I think the moment was hijacked to meaningfully talk about race, because even though she had good things going on, if you don't know already, she was leader of a chapter of the NAACP in Spokane, Washington. She was an adjunct professor, so she had real credentials and was like being an activist and doing things, but yet she was outed, and it made it seem like she was hiding something, and in some ways she was. And there are a few others that have come after her, and they just so happen to have been born white, but identifying as something else and having to apologize. And so you then think, you know what, someone else that really did need that position or was truly a part of a historically marginalized community, they could have been in that position instead of it being hijacked by someone that was pretending. That's a notion. I can appreciate that. So that doesn't do any justice to what we're talking about, and it would help some people to double down, some of those that are critics of the legitimacy of this.